Hi, good day. I'm Peter Don from Stephen George, and today I have Marlene Meiberg with me. She's our rental manager, and we are going to discuss some scenarios around documentation that is required when it comes to rental of property, the sale of properties. Marlene, yeah.
Good morning, Peter. Nice to be here with you.
Nice having you here. Let's quickly chat a little bit about documentation. You are right in the center of where documentation is required in terms of law, and and the agents will secure the documentation and bring it to you and so on. What is the challenges currently?
I think the main challenge is the clients don't always understand why we require certain documentation. And other agencies, unfortunately, not abiding by the laws and the regulations that are set in place for us. So this does make it difficult in our industry as clients, as I say, if other agencies don't require documents, why do we need it?
Yeah.
So I think the main question is the why in terms of documentation and the legal requirements which we are subjected to.
So I remember in the old days, we always had this scenario when it was easy that a mandate was done by the shake of a hand, and people trust each other and so on. But things have changed in terms of law, in terms of requirements, of compliance. Now we need documents. So if we need to have a look at what is the different documents that we need.
Okay. So firstly, a mandate is very important. So legally we are not allowed to operate without a mandate. So I think what people misunderstand is that we are a professional service. Just like an attorney gives a professional service, we do as well. So if you go to an attorney, before they even start working with you, you need to mandate them. And that's the same with us. So if you're a landlord or a seller, legally we need, per our regulations, we need a mandate from you to tell us that we are allowed to market your property.
All right, and if we look at a mandate, you get different mandates. You get the open mandate, you get a joint mandate, and you get a sole mandate.
Yes.
But within that mandate, it actually describes at the end of the day what the price is that the property needs to sell for, what the period is, and then there is also the commission arrangement between the agency and the client.
Yes.
But sometimes we see as well that an agent will come in and say, this property, I mandate to sell this property until it is sold. Is it correct? Is it lawful?
No. So you need to have a specific time period set out in terms of your mandate to say that until when do you have a mandate? Until when is your mandate valid? So unfortunately, you can't give a mandate for an undisclosed time. So you need to have a period with that.
So there needs to be a start date and there needs to be an end date.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And so on. So, yeah, differences between the mandates. On an open mandate, every agent or sales the owner, even the owner is allowed to sell the property, no problems as such, but the mandate is written. The joint mandate is where there is more than one agency that is working on the property, and then they work around that. But when it is an exclusive sole mandate, that is when only one agency is appointed, and they have a mandate to sell that property within a set period of time, and then that mandate comes to an end. New discussions or new arrangements can be made.
Yes.
That the mandate can be extended or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, I just want to add, even with an open mandate, people have the idea of, but it's an open mandate. That's correct. But as you say, there's certain stipulations. What's the price that you as the seller or the landlord wants? Otherwise, agencies go and they put the properties on the market for the incorrect price, which obviously causes conflict. But still, even if it's an open mandate, once again, an agent cannot act without a mandate.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, some of the other documentation that we need is the fixtures and fittings and the property condition report that we've covered in previous videos as well with attorneys and so on. But Do you want to expand a little bit on those?
Yeah, I think once again the property condition report, just to touch on that. So legally, per the PPRA and the regulations that we as agents are bound by, we cannot market a property without a property condition report. But it also protects both the landlord and the seller, because if there are certain defects, which is latent defects, you can't see them with the eye, they need to be disclosed to the prospective tenant or buyer. And unfortunately, people come and afterwards they say, but you never told me, I was not informed of this. So it does protect the agent as well, and the landlord again. So the landlord has the proof, he informed the agent, and once again, they both have the proof that they have informed the prospective tenant or buyer, which helps them when there's an OTP on the table, that there's not a loophole for the buyer to get out of the contract.
No, or a lease agreement.
Or a lease agreement, yes.
You know, so it is important. All right, and then there's the big one that we always see, that was one of the major compliance issues that we've received over the last few years, and that is FICA. Now, FICA is one of those scenarios that we need to be compliant with. And the whole idea behind FICA is to combat money laundering, money that is going into terrorism and all those scenarios. So what is your scenario? What is your experience in terms of FICA, the feedback from the clients? What do we experience there?
I think the main thing is that people don't understand, once again, why FICA. So we are used to going to Vodacom or going to the bank and we need to be FICA'd. But do we really understand what the purpose of FICA is? And I think you just touched on that. So the purpose of FICA is actually very big. Money laundering is a major problem, I think not just in South Africa, but internationally.
No, absolutely.
So at the end of the day, a safer South Africa, a safer international area is safer for us all. Terrorism, there are certain areas where terrorism is a major thing, and then I know it's also one of the things that they also look for is money that is used for certain hazardous weapons, creation of hazardous weapons. So at the end of the day, if we look at the why, I think in our industry, what we will mainly see in terms of FICA is to combat money laundering. So that will be our focus, because unfortunately properties are used for money laundering. There are certain instances where certain businesses or associations use properties, they buy properties to launder money which they got from specifically drugs and those kind of activities, illegal activities. And the easiest way to get rid of those monies is to buy a property with it. So at the end of the day, so that is why we need to FICA, and it comes back to the point where when we FICA you, why do you need to give us your ID and your proof of residence? We need to determine who our client is. So we need to know our client. That is our responsibility. So we are an accountable institution according to FIC. So once again, an agent that says I don't need to FICA you, that's not correct. Or I can FICA you when we do a contract. That's not correct, because FICA says that the accountable institution must do know your client verification, determine where the source of funds is, and all of those things when we enter into a business relationship. And the business relationship starts as soon as a mandate is entered into. So effectively, we can't operate without a mandate, and we can't work with you if we have not FICA'd you. And it's really not such an intense situation or such intense documentation needed. If it's for an individual, it's literally an ID, a proof of residence, not older than 3 months. You need to fill in a FICA questionnaire. The buyer needs to confirm, and the tenant, what is the source of funds. And that is to determine, is the funds from illegal activities? Most of the time it will be from your salary or your monthly earnings. Where does that money come from? A pension. So that is, I would say that is the big thing of why FICA. The problem that we have is, a lot of times we prefer dealing with the agent because who doesn't ask all these documentations, because it's easier. My question is, when we get to the sale of the property or we get to the leasing of the property and there's issues, now you are unhappy with the agent because the agent is not professional, they're not working according to the law. But if the agent is appointed who works according to the law, who does what they must do, then you won't have these problems at the end of the day. So rather go for the agent who does the things correctly. If it's an entity, obviously when we get to FICA, it is a bit more complicated, but most of the time we deal with natural persons. But as I say, so do you want the agent that at the end of the day works according to the law, or do you want the agent that takes the shortcut, but you'll also take the shortcut when dealing with your property, and that will cause issues?
No, absolutely. I think, for me, it is always about an ethical issue.
Yes.
As a citizen of South Africa and, contributing to the economy and it is always best to do it in the best interest of everybody. Now, I understand, we as people, we've grown up in a scenario where we believe that my finances is private and yes, I don't need to disclose this, but unfortunately life has changed. Nowadays there is nothing more private. No. If you need to go into a dealing, you need to disclose everything, where you are, who the persons involved is and such. The other thing is you as a seller, it is important for you as well to know that yes, the buyer who's buying your property, that they have the funds. We see it so many times that people, there will be people that will sign OTP, and when we ask them what the source of, and it is a cash deal, and we ask them what is the source of funds, no, it's coming from overseas. Out of experience, yeah, I've seen maybe 1% of those transactions realized, because normally it is either what we're telling you, somebody's going to invest money to us or give it to us to purchase a property. But the reality is once we see that kind of transactions, is already a red flag for us, and that should be for the sellers as well. So I think when it comes to FICA, it is actually in the best interest of a seller that FICA compliance is available and is done correctly. That's and I think, like Marley said, the important thing is if your agent is taking shortcuts, if your agent is not doing the compliance correctly, or they are listing your property without a mandate, then I would be concerned, because at the end of the day, that agent is not going to look after your interest. It's not going to look after, it's not going to be professional, because they are taking shortcuts with one thing in mind, and that is the commission that I can earn. And a lot of them is, they will come into the profession today, tomorrow they're out, and there's no recourse around those kind of scenarios.
And I think just to touch on what you said about ethics, exactly that. So, if the law and the ethics is not important to the agent, how are they going to deal ethically throughout the process?
Yes, absolutely.
And if there's an issue, how can you trust that it is done correctly, professionally and ethically? And I think that is the backbone for each transaction at the end of the day.
No, absolutely. And so I think that is basically the main scenarios, or you can just see, okay, then we've got the fixtures and fittings, that is normally that we've touched on previously, of what is staying in the property.
The fixtures and fittings, that's not necessarily a legal requirement so much, but it does protect you as the seller. It's not really applicable to rentals, but mostly to sales. But the thing is, we've seen it numerous times over the years, where there is disputes about blinds or things like a fountain in the garden or something like that, where the information is not correctly conveyed to the buyer. Is this staying or is it not staying? So the buyer assumes there's a fountain in the garden, this is part of the property. The seller assumes he's taking it with him because it is his belonging, it is not fitted to the property, and at the end of the day it does cause an issue when the property is registered, in terms of, now the seller took it with him, the buyer said, but where is this thing? Where with the fixtures and fittings, it actually helps to prevent these issues and conflicts at the end of the day.
So I think, to take everything into a nutshell, is the importance of the agent's knowledge.
Yes.
Do your agent know what needs to be done? Is your agent compliant?
Yes.
Is your agent ethical? by telling you, this is required by law and all the scenarios around that. And can you trust the agent with your property of putting it onto the market and getting you the best possible price? And that is the important thing for us at Steve and George, is to make sure that we are compliant, we are ethical, and we are looking at the best interest of our sellers and our landlords and our buyers and our tenants.
Correct.
And that is how we are working. So yeah, Maria, I don't know if you want to add something. I think the main thing is if you need anything or more information around that, you can make contact with us. We've got documentation, brochures, describing most of this, I would say, compliance matters. But anytime you're welcome to contact myself, contact for Marley, we are here to service the industry and have your best interests at heart. Thank you very much and have a lovely day.
Thank you. Enjoy your day.